Welcome to this special episode of ET with GOTB coming to you live from Switzerland. This episode is powered by Xero accounting software. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. We are back for part 2 of our bonus episodes where we look to dig into what gives the Lionesses the extra edge, that 1% that helps them feel like they are on top of their game. We're exploring the often overlooked details of what it takes to become a professional footballer, which I've been really enjoying doing. I feel like now I'm ready to go. Like now I know all the things that I should have been doing for the last 25 years. Might be a bit late.
I think you're a bit too old, Rach.
I might just be. We are once again working with Xero. They help small businesses like ours feel on top of our game, making them the perfect partner for this series. I feel like after watching Italy play, I keep doing a lot of this stuff in our podcast, so I need to calm it down. In case you missed it, in the first episode, which if you haven't watched it, do go back and watch. We're exploring all of the different levers that national teams and players can pull to gain that extra edge on their opponents. What is it that takes them to the next level on the international stage and beyond, as the game gets better and better and we see more and more investment, everyone's just getting better and better. So all those 1% are so important, and not just on the training pitch as well.
No, it's off the field. Actually, it's the stuff off the field that I'm really interested in, because we know what goes on a training pitch. We know that, there's analysis and tactics and all of that stuff and fitness, but I think it's the stuff away from not just the training field, like within clubs, but also when players and athletes go home and what they have to do to make themselves the best.
It's something our next speaker talks about is, when you leave the training pitch or a club, you're still a professional footballer. It doesn't stop. And in the first part of this mini-series, we spoke to former England goalkeeper Karen Bardsley, who gave us a real insight into what the growth has been like for the Lionesses over the years, and the introduction of your nutrition, your period tracking, data analysis, and how she as a player, I guess, learned to absorb that, use it in the right way, get used to having all of this newfound information, and then working out how it is going to help her feel on top of her game, which I thought was really interesting. It's kind of almost like at times you went from nothing to maybe an overload of information.
Yeah, definitely. I think with both of the people that we've interviewed from past Lionesses or, current, it's very, very clear the difference between when they started out to now and how far the game's come in such a short period of time.
It is a short period of time. We might think 10 years is a long time, but actually it's not, because it takes time for things that get introduced to then be impactful. You don't say, I've signed a professional contract and now I'm amazing. It takes time for those things to fall into place and be impactful.
Yeah, and it takes time for bodies to adjust. I remember, I think it was Phil Neville who, when he was in charge of England, was saying, these footballers have only turned professional in the last 2-3 years, and their bodies are only just catching up to the fact that they are now professional athletes. And that isn't anything against them. It's just a different style of training, and that different style of training then has to take a bit of time to interact with your body. It can shock the body, so you can have more injuries, or it can just take a bit of time to really get to your full strength, your full muscle capacity, whatever it might be.
And your full potential, I suppose.
Yeah.
We also heard in our previous episode, from some of the current Lionesses like Leah Williamson and Alex Greenwood, about how they use their downtime, I say in inverted commas, to keep them in tip-top shape during a major tournament. And something I've really noticed from the players we've spoken to is how individual all of that is, the various different things that they each need to give them energy, and it can look very different for every player. And it was something that Karen Bardsley shared on how England got over that devastating semi-final loss in 2015, and they had to then turn around and be ready for a third place playoff, and which they ultimately went and won the bronze medal. But she touched on how they were given the freedom to kind of get over it the way they needed to manage those emotions, and then they came back together and they were able to use that to kind of push them in that final game, the third place game, I should say, and ultimately win the bronze. And she really credited the players and also the staff around them that recognised they need to have a little bit of freedom to manage that.
I think it's something that England have done really well in the time from then to now, in terms of letting players kind of have their time off as well, because it is vital. It is vital to have space and to be able to be yourself as well. And I think I've seen it at all age groups. It's about like bringing up the person as well as the football player. At the bottom of it all, you've got a series of individuals who all have different interests, different needs, different characteristics, and it's trying to figure out what suits both. And I think what Fran builds into it in their coming interview is that, you know, she's given the space and they're given the space to react the way they need to react, deal with it the way they need to deal with it, and then you come through the other side as a relaxed, well, more relaxed professional athlete who's got the right mentality to take on the challenges ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is who we're talking to next, or we spoke to, was one of the reigning Lioness champions, Fran Kirby. Her journey is really interesting because she started out playing for Reading and working. You know, she'd go to the gym first thing in the morning, she'd get in the car, she'd go do her 9 to 5, she'd then go and do some coaching. And then after coaching, she'd go and do her training. And her journey from playing like that to being in one of the best domestic teams in England, picking up loads of trophies, and then going on to do that with the Lionesses and winning a major trophy is so insightful because it really encapsulates how those changes have impacted players and helped them be on top of their game. So here's our chat with Fran.
It was interesting because I had appearance not so long ago, and I mentioned the word sacrifice because obviously that's a word that gets kind of thrown around a lot in terms of like, oh, I've sacrificed this, and I've said, but you know, she said, well, it's not really a sacrifice; it's a choice because we choose to do this sport. We choose to go the extra mile. We choose to do the extra things, and it really like hit home with me. It's like you always have a choice to do these things. It's whether you want to do them or not. It's whether you want to push yourself to that next level or not. And of course, everyone makes sacrifices. Everyone makes sacrifices in life for their sport or whatever. But you know, for me, when I actually sat there and thought about it, it's like I've always chose football. I've chose that. No one's made me choose that. No, you know, a coach has not sat down with me and gone, if you don't do this thing, then I'm going to kick you out of the team. Or, you know, if you choose to go to football instead of go to this place, this is going to be the repercussions. Of course, you are expected to do it by a coach, by a club, by your, you know, whoever it is. But, you know, we were always in a position where we could have said no. And I think that is probably where people see it as a sacrifice because yes, you miss out on so many things. You miss out on weddings, you miss out on, you know, birthdays, you miss out on nice dinners that people are going out on a Saturday night or whatever it is. Like you miss those things, but as well you choose to miss them. So I think that is where I was like, oh, I've actually changed my mindset about it because I'm like, no, I've always chose football first. Football has always been first in my life, and I honestly think that that is probably one of the biggest differences between people who probably make it to that top level and people who maybe don't is like where do you prioritize football? And all the players that I have played with at the highest level are there because they have chose football along the way. And yeah, I would say that is kind of the mindset that, you know, you have to have.
For sure. And what do you think then are the extras, you know, day in, day out that you have to do? You know, I guess it comes from everything like nutrition to, as I say, you know, family time and not or friend time and stuff like that. On a day-to-day basis, what are those 1% that you have to put in?
I think, you know, when you're at training, it's such a short period that you're at training, or, you know, it depends on your manager, it depends on your setup or whatever. But for me, it's the other hours that are really important. And I remember we were on England camp and Lucy made a really good point when we had a meeting about things. It's like, you're not just a professional footballer when you're at your training ground. You don't leave training and you're no longer a professional footballer. What are you doing when you get home? You know, for me, I obviously no secret that I have struggled with injuries or illness or all of these things. So I think when these things start to happen, I really just kind of shut down on doing anything else. I was really like, I need to get home. I need to get on the sofa. I need to relax. I need to recover. I need to not, you know, I take my dog for a walk, but then I have to be off feet. You know, I'm very like, I like to preserve my energy, but that's because of my own experiences. Not everyone works that way. Some people like to go out and have a coffee. Some people like it all depends on what works for you. But for me, I've always been, okay, how am I going to be at my best for training tomorrow? If that's laying on the sofa for the next 8 hours, then, you know, that's what I have to do. And yeah, I think obviously you spoke about like, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, okay, nutrition has to be this, your recovery has to be this. But I think it's more just ticking things off as you go through the day. Did you take all your supplements in the morning? Did you get to training early enough that you can get yourself sorted before the team meeting? Training at your highest level that you can every single day. You know, training for me is just as important as games. I think if you were to talk to any of my teammates, you know, who I've trained with, they'd probably say I'm a nightmare on the training pitch because I'm just so competitive. And then it's obviously your recovery methods and, you know, what are you doing? I go and see a soft tissue therapist twice a week in the evening just to kind of keep my body ticking over. I'll do an extra mobility session in the gym, or, you know, there's things that we have to do, but this is things that people don't see. And I think those are the important times, the ones where you come home and people think you're just sitting at home. No, what are you doing? It's not, oh, I'm in the gym at the training ground. No, I come home, and if I feel like I need to do an extra stretching session, if I need to jump in my ice bath, if I need to do all these things, then those are the times that I think are most important, is when people aren't watching you.
Yeah, that's what I was saying to, so when we were talking about this idea, it's a bit like a small business like us. Like the game, the team, the pitch, the games, they're your shop front, right? That's what everyone sees. And no one actually sees the how you got there. And I know we often think about the training side of things, but not like everything else that goes on in the background, because you are constantly, for your whole career, a professional athlete at the end of the day. It's not just, as you said, when you turn up to training. How do you find that changed over your career? Like when you look back at maybe when you were at Reading or when you first broke into the England team, like how did that kind of evolve?
Yeah, that was different because obviously when I was at Reading, I was working full time as well. So it was really a case of getting up early in the morning to go to the gym. So I was going to the gym at 6 a.m., for example, 5, 6 a.m., in the gym till around 8, shower, get ready, go to work 9 till 5. And then I would coach 5 till 7 and then go to training 8 till 10. So that was kind of the schedule at Reading. So like that wasn't just all about football then, because it was impossible to do so. You know, I did everything I could to make myself as good as football as I could, but obviously there were so many other things, you know, that came with it, whether it was work, whether it was, you know, trying to keep myself in a good shape, even though, you know, I was driving in my car all day. You know, it wasn't a case of, you know, I had lunch made for me, I had to try and make it work. And, you know, these are the things that, you know, I had to do to get myself to obviously get in a place where England were looking at me. And, you know, I think a lot of people, like, I think I was very lucky, to be honest, to be in, to have got to that point where England were interested in me. Obviously, I was playing in WSL2. I wasn't playing against the best teams, the best players week in, week out. And then obviously they introduced the Continental Cup stages where you'd play against WSL1 teams. And I think obviously if they hadn't, I mean, I might have gone into the WSL at some point, you know, obviously because there was a lot of talk around me at the time, but I don't know if the likes of Chelsea would have been interested in me, if Arsenal would have been interested in me, if we hadn't had that opportunity to play against them in the Continental Cup. So I think there was a little bit of luck part of it. Whether or not I would have made it to the WSL, most likely, but I don't know if it would have been at that kind of level, or like if I would have been interested by England. And then obviously I went away with the 23s to La Manga. I didn't really do any of the youth age groups, so I never really experienced how it was to be a professional footballer. I never really had the wake up, go to a meeting, go and have your breakfast done, go to training at a normal time, have lunch, have another meeting. You know, I wasn't used to that. And at the beginning, I didn't really like it. I didn't like my whole day being about football because I hadn't been used to it. I'd been used to going to work. I'd been used to, you know, not doing all these things. So I struggled a lot at the youth age groups. So then I kind of like took myself away from it. Obviously there was other reasons as well. You know, I was going through a really tough time with my depression and everything like that. But it was just a completely different thing. I was completely out of my comfort zone. All these girls had trained together since they were like 14 years old, coming through, and I was just this random person coming in, like, oh, hi everyone, like, you know. So then when I went out and trained with the 23s, I remember the first session I got called in and said, you're going to go and train with the senior team. And I think this was after the group stages. So I think I'd done really well, obviously, against Arsenal and Chelsea. And then I really understood what it was like to be a professional footballer and be involved with them. And I think I trained with them nearly the whole week, and then managed to play against Ireland in a friendly, just. And I remember when they said to me, "Oh, you're gonna." I remember actually in the morning I trained with the 23s, and I rolled my ankle in the morning, and I remember just thinking to myself, "Oh my God, this is so painful," and oh my God, what am I gonna do? And then they came to me in the afternoon saying, "You're gonna be on the bench for the seniors," and I was like, "Okay, my ankle's fine. It's no problem here." So yeah, I think it was just like learning from going out of my comfort zone to what I've already known to then in the professional environment. And then obviously I signed, like kind of like a pro with Reading, where I would go and train with the boys. So then I kind of got another hit of what it was like to be a professional. So it's just been kind of like dribs and drabs of it, where I've been like, okay, I need to just remember that this is how it actually is, and I need to get out of this comfort zone, and I need to get out of this comfort zone. And it was really hard because I'm quite a structured girl. I like things to be the way they are, and I like to do what I normally do. So to kind of go through that, it was quite tough, but it definitely like evolved me into when I went into Chelsea. It was just normal instead of going into a professional environment being like, oh wow, this is really overwhelming.
Do you think those experiences kind of taught you much more about like yourself and your body than if you started in that frame of, being in, I guess, an elite performer, professional athlete every day?
Yeah, definitely. I think you only learn when you do it. And I remember when I was going through the stage of, leaving Reading, which was really, really tough because I'd been there for such a long time. And even at the time when I was talking to clubs, I was like, do I really want to leave? Do I really want to leave my comfort zone? Do I really want to go to another level? And it definitely taught me a lot about myself when I went into that environment, about what I needed to work on socially, physically, and mentally as well. Like all of these three things, I went into the environment and I don't think I spoke to anyone for months because I was just so nervous. I was so shy, and you obviously when you come into a team environment, you have to give more of yourself to allow people to understand you. And I was really lucky. I had some fantastic people there, and I shared a flat with Gemma Davison, who was a more senior player, and she really looked after me and made sure that I was all right. So I was quite lucky in that sense. So I'm still learning. I'm 32 and I'm still learning. Because as the body gets older, you start to realize you can't do all of these extra things that maybe you used to do. I can't stay after training and blast a football into the goal 5 times a week now. I have to pick my time. I have to be at the beginning of the week so then I can recover for the end of the week. So you're always learning about your body and about what you need to do to be at your top level.
And it feels like not that long ago that maybe the whole player, if you like, wasn't perhaps thought about. It was just kind of getting a player physically ready for a match. But mentally, that full wraparound feels like it's something that's evolved over time. And you've obviously been, involved in teams where I guess we're kind of at the forefront of pushing that, like teams like Chelsea, and England, I guess, where you start thinking about like tracking your sleep, your periods, what you're eating, nutrition, all that kind of stuff. That must have been quite a learning as well.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, it was kind of a transition period where I was just used to being a professional footballer. So then you then include something else. And, I always feel quite lucky and privileged that I've been at a place in women's football where I've been part of all these changes. And I've been part of all of these things that have allowed people to become the best footballer that they can be. Because I look back at the girls who had the same schedule as me playing for England. They didn't have the opportunities to track their sleep. They didn't have the opportunities to work around their menstrual cycle. They didn't have the opportunities to, use an ice bath because there wasn't an ice bath at the facility. So, all of these things obviously that have created, women's football to where it is. And of course it needed to happen because if we want us to be the best athletes that we can be, the best footballers that we can be, we have to have the research and we have to understand it. So for me, to be part of that transition and to learn about it, for me to learn about it, I sit sometimes with my aunties and they're talking about certain things. I'm like, oh, maybe you should try this because I've tried it as a footballer, or maybe you need to take this supplement, or maybe you need to take this tablet. And there's so many things that I've learned now that I can take with me, not just obviously as an athlete, but going forward as a person. If I'm struggling with something, it's because I haven't taken this, or maybe I should put my aura ring back on and track my sleep a little bit and see what's going on with that. So it's definitely enhanced my knowledge about it. Obviously, I'm not a professional, I'm not a pro. I would never give advice to someone and be like, this is absolutely going to work. You need to go for this, do this. But, I'm at a place now where I understand it a little bit more and also understand how my body works in certain sections. Because I think obviously the menstrual cycle is a massive talking point to do with injuries and to do with injury prevention. But as I've kind of got older, I've realized how my body reacts at certain points of my menstrual cycle. And if I feel a little bit of pain in certain moments, I'll check my app and I'll be like, I'm high on my inflammations at the moment. It's probably just that. Like, you need to take it slow and be, careful. But it's probably just because you're a little bit inflamed because of where you're at in your menstrual cycle right now. So that's given me a massive learning curve in terms of like understanding, okay, this might not be an injury. It might be, it might not be an injury, but you need to be careful with it. And that's something that's kind of like crept up quite a lot as I've got older. And, as I'm still trying to push myself at the highest level, there are moments in that period where I'm looking at my body. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do right now? I need to do extra recovery. Do I need to be modified in training? Do I need to do X, Y, and Z? And these are the things that you just learn as you kind of get older and you understand your body a little bit more alongside everything else that comes in with it.
For sure. You mentioned of course, your injuries and your illness. I guess having to build yourself back from those moments is incredibly hard. But what do you think? What does it take to have to do that and then reach the performance level, the highest performance level again?
Honestly, I don't know. I think I've always been a player that I always want to prove to myself that I can do it, and I've always been that kind of player on the pitch and off the pitch. Um, I think, when you get your first injury, it's quite normal. You're kind of like, okay, like this is just part of the game. You're gonna get injuries. It's gonna happen, and you just kind of mentally are like, okay, like I can recover from this. It's fine. But obviously, as they kind of like start to pile up, it gets a lot more difficult each time to go, okay, you're all right. You can keep going. It's fine. Like, so obviously that has been probably the hardest part about it, is continuously building yourself up to be like, okay, like it's just an injury. You'll be fine. It's all right. And so I think it's more just my mindset of not giving up. And, I love playing football. I still do. I loved it when I was 3. I still love it at 32. I love training. I love games. I love being competitive. I love the fun nature around it. I love how angry I get when I play it. I thrive off these things. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I've probably just kept going, is because I know I love it. And I know as soon as I get back out on the pitch, I will enjoy it. But it's just obviously tough when the moments come. And I think obviously each injury I've had, it's been a lot harder to, I think when I was younger, obviously, I kind of came back in a good shape. I came back, ready to go. But obviously as you get older and you get more and more little knocks, injuries, it's really hard to get your body in a place to come back at an elite level. And I think that's something that I've probably struggled with in the last, I'd probably say 3 years, has been being able to come back and sustain the levels. So it's everyone else's levels going up, or you're bringing in younger players who are fresh, who have energy, who have these things. So, it's only natural that that's going to happen. But I think, I'm just really proud that even though, I have struggled with that, I'm still able to play in the WSL, still able to play at a high level, be able to help my team and contribute to my team. So, yeah, I think it's been a real learning curve of what my mind can do. And I think if I'm ever going through something where I'm like, this is really hard, I can look back at what I've been through and be like, nah, this is a walk in the park. Like you have no issues with this.
And I guess maybe the ultimate trophy on an international stage anyway was the Euro 2022. From the outside, it looked like probably the perfect month of everything going right for England as well. But as you say, things happen behind the scenes. What do you think it was about that team that really got you over the line to, winning at Wembley?
I think everyone just invested everything into it. Whether they were playing, whether they were a sub, whether they got minutes, whether they didn't get minutes. And people don't realize how tough tournaments are when you're in the same hotel room for a prolonged period of time when it's the same 11 going out to play, it's the same subs coming on, and then you think about the girls who don't get any minutes, and everyone wants to represent their country. No one goes to an England team going, yeah, okay, like, oh, everyone's proud to represent their country. Everyone's proud to be in the squad. Everyone loves being there. I'm not taking anything away from, representing your country, but everyone wants to play. You want to play for your country. You don't want to sit on the bench for your country. You don't want to be in the stands for your country. Everyone wants to play. That's why you play football. So for me, I think everyone just really bought in to whatever my situation is, I'm going to be the best teammate that I can be. And you're not going to be perfect all the time. There were some moments where people needed a bit of a pick me up, which is absolutely fine. It's absolutely normal. Some of the starting 11 needed a pick me up sometimes, and they got that. So I think it was really just that side of it is everyone came together. Everyone accepted everyone for who they were. No one expected anyone to do anything that they weren't comfortable with. Some of the girls wanted to go for coffee. Some of the girls didn't. Okay, no problem. Some of the girls wanted to play volleyball. Some of the girls didn't. It wasn't like a case of things were just shoved down your throat that you had to do it to be part of the team and be good for the team. It was you're an individual. You do what you need to do to be at the best level to play on the pitch. And for me, I'm quite a quiet person. I like to be by myself. I like to be in my own comfort. I like to play my PlayStation. I like to, do, and, I didn't feel at any point that I was pressured to do something that I wasn't comfortable with. And that made me feel more secure in the environment. And I think everyone kind of had that feeling as well. And yeah, I think the biggest thing was just everyone accepted everyone for who they were and everyone bought into winning the gold medal. And I remember I had a conversation with Beth and Jess during the tournament, and I said to them, look, when we get to the end of the tournament, yes, of course, there's going to be a player or two players that are going to get headlines because they're going to score a goal or going to save a penalty or whatever it is. But everyone is going to have the same medal around their neck. Everyone, when you type into their Wikipedia page, it's going to say European champion. Whether you play a minute, whether you don't play a minute, whether you get a headline, whether you don't get a headline, everyone is going to have the same medal wrapped around their neck. So if we can all invest into this and get a medal, that's all people are going to see. So that was my mindset going into it was, everyone's going to have the same medal. How do we get everyone to invest into it so everyone feels that feeling when they do get it? And I remember looking at Beth after the game. Beth didn't play a minute. She was crying more than anyone else because of the relief of getting herself through it and pushing herself. She was a fantastic trainer. She worked hard in the gym. She worked hard in the blowout. She was there in the changing room when people needed her. And, she did her job. And for me, like that is more rewarding probably than, everything else because it showed what a character she is and what a personality she is. And same for so many others in that group who, didn't get the minutes that they thought they were going to get or, had to, work hard off the pitch. And you need them people. You need them people who are going to buy into it. And I honestly think that was one of the main reasons why we were able to achieve that.
It's amazing how quickly things changed, isn't it? Because I remember Fran breaking out at Reading part time, and now she's retired. I remember that goal. I know the goal you're talking about, but now she's retired, and that doesn't feel like that long a time for all of those different tools to come into place and have the impact they've had.
Yeah, I think especially a story like Fran Kirby, where, as you say, she was playing in, the WSL2, and it wasn't very often that a player got picked up in that kind of space, and she got a real opportunity, I think, because Reading played Arsenal and Chelsea in the Cup, and that was televised on the channels and really widely promoted compared to where her games were normally being seen, and she suddenly hit the headlines, and I think everyone knew what a phenomenal talent she had, the potential that she had, but the fact that they took not a chance on her, but it was a different way of working in terms of bringing someone up from the second division and giving her that opportunity, and she really hit the ground running. I remember her debut against Sweden, wasn't it, in Hartlepool, and she scored on her debut and then went to the World Cup the following year and really, really broke out there and became, she hates the phrase, I know, but she got the title Mini Messi because of the impact that she had on that stage. But I think at that time it was pretty unheard of in terms of where the pool of players were coming from, and the fact that that tournament brought Chelsea to her door, and then her career just kind of skyrocketed from there.
I also found it really interesting to hear what she needs personally to be on top of her game, because it's just another example of how individual it is, and also about her drive and her commitment and her competitiveness, and how she kind of attributes that to staying on top for so long, like despite the injuries and everything else she's gone through. And I think that's kind of a commonality in the conversations we've had with players who've gotten to the top and stayed at the top, is that drive, that determination, that resilience. They're really important attributes to have. And we have to point out too that these changes aren't just at senior level. You know, if you look back at, we saw it at the under-17 World Cup, didn't we? So we were working with Xero again, and we were delving into the analysis, the data, all of those extras now that are being provided at youth levels. And you know, players nowadays aren't having to work 9 to 5; they can fully focus on being a professional athlete. So we wanted to find out a little bit more then about like the youth level pathway. You know, you had a chance to speak to under-19s coach Lauren Smith last month, and you kind of delved into the importance of them in shaping players that ultimately get into the senior squad, and the importance of that level in preparing them for being a professional athlete. Here's what she had to say.
When you're thinking about, as you say, moulding young players, it's a huge responsibility, I guess, when you think about it. What do you think are the key aspects to it when you're handling a group, I guess, like these?
I think you have to treat everybody individually. You want a team with that ethic, but unless you treat them as individuals, they're not going to treat you as one. And that comes down to respect, trust. You've got to know what makes them tick. I mean, we don't want 20 robots on the pitch, or like in the team. Sorry, not on the pitch, obviously, but like we don't want to pick 20 players that are exactly the same. So to do that, you need to make sure that they can use their individual flair in the hotel, in the pitch, wherever they might go. And I think that's the key to making the best out of like teenagers for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess you're handling a lot of different personalities. They're learning how to be adults as well, and how to, not just on the football pitch, but in life as well. So it's a real like formative time for them. How do you help them with that side of things?
I think the biggest thing is not reacting too heavy, like treating, understanding like the teenage brain, knowing what changes they might be going through, and also understanding that sometimes they have bad days. That's probably the thing that helps manage them as a group when they've got so many different individuals. You think, okay, that person might need a bit of time. They need a conversation. They just need to sleep. Whatever it might be. We've just got to be ready to kind of find. It's like football, right? There's a problem, you find a solution to it.
Yeah.
It's not always right. It never always goes right, but we try our best to make sure they feel welcome at home, that they can be themselves, and that they can be performers, and that's ultimately the challenge.
And I guess in terms of the Lionesses pathway, it's really come on in recent years in terms of the structure and everything around it, and as you say, the sport as well. I think the pool is getting bigger. You're starting to find players from different places. I think of Lauren Thompson playing in America and Erica Parkinson playing in Portugal. Does that excite you, the fact that it's not just the same old pools of places that you can go looking for talent? It's everywhere now.
Yeah, and everything's getting a lot stronger, isn't it? And there's different like strengths in different countries as well. So when you look at like Erica, for example, playing senior football in Portugal is brilliant for our pathway and player minutes. So I think we don't always have to look what's on our doorstep, and that's great about this team. Actually, they've got loads of different experiences: WSL, abroad, coming off the bench, starting games. We've got kind of a bit of everything in both the senior game and the PGA. So yeah, we've got a brilliant talent ID team as well, which is part of that support. Like that's something that they're brilliant at, and should let the people that are brilliant at it go and do that, and they do. And that's how we manage to have this array of talent in our team.
And I guess in terms of that and dealing with people from different players from different circumstances and playing different kinds of minutes as well. You've got some in senior football, some who have had to go out on loan to get minutes this season. How do you, because I can imagine it's quite a fine balance in terms of managing each program, but also as a collective when you come together.
Yeah, we've got to look at what they've been doing beforehand, how ready they are for how many games in a short period of time is important. And again, it goes back to that individual bit. It's not just about the person. We have to treat them as individuals and what they're coming out of and into. Like some might have had a couple of niggles or injuries this season. That means that they're maybe not as robust right now at this point as the rest of the players might be. So everything's about adjusting and making sure that we've got like team's ready to perform. And at this point in the tournament, it's about freshness and making sure they feel brilliant by match day, every single match day, so that they can run their socks off and go again.
It all feeds in, doesn't it? Like when it's coming from youth levels up, it's incredible to think the kind of players that are going to be gracing major tournaments in 5-10 years time, when we look at what the under-17s had at the World Cup to now and all the way through the pathways. That's all they've ever known.
Yeah, I think it's so important, and you're thinking like with the under-17s World Cup, those players have various number of them have signed professional contracts with their clubs over the last 6 months or so since they've turned 18. So they're really, they're in academies early, they're getting their opportunities early, and they're getting their professional contracts earlier, I think. And it means that they can fully subscribe to that kind of profession. It was always professional, but that elite environment, the full-time environment where you can do everything to just concentrate on football. And I know a lot of them are doing school as well, and like A-levels and stuff like that, and that's really important. But I think around that's really supported by the academies as well. But it does so much for them to be able to concentrate on realizing their potential that they have to really make it at the top level.
Now, I wanted to drop in a quick clip from a chat you had with Michelle Agyemang, one of the brightest and most exciting young talents coming through the pathways. And she's obviously made headlines when she was called up to the seniors for this major tournament. And she's got minutes, which is incredible. But what I loved about this and her answers is that I feel like it now shows how players at her age can just focus on the football, and everything else. She touches a lot on what's provided for them to be at their best. And when you compare that to, say, a 19-year-old Fran Kirby or a 19-year-old Karen Bardsley and what they had access to, I just think that this chat, although it's short, really kind of shows that growth from that young player perspective. Here's what she had to say.
We kind of see all of the things that make it to the pitch and what makes a performance on the pitch. But behind the scenes, I'm sure there's an awful lot as an elite athlete that goes on behind the scenes that gets you those extra 1% to making it to be an elite athlete. What do you think for you those extras are?
I'd say recovery is really important. Like, we have various options for recovery here. We have like cryo, ice baths, weighted vests for like sleep, stuff like that is very important. It's such short turnarounds, like from game to game. So I think recovery is really important. Getting fresh and ready for the next training session for the next game is really important. And we have everything we need here.
Yes, for sure. And we've spoken to some former Lionesses recently about the kind of need for resilience, especially, I guess, in tournament environments. Where do you feel you've built that resilience from, and how do you think it helps you?
I say, obviously, having experience in WSL last season and across the championship as well, like 2 seasons ago, I think builds resilience for me. Being in like a higher performance environment is really important. Having those not so good experiences kind of build you for the future. And then I guess a second thing for me, which is really important, is my faith, having that trust and that confidence that there is a greater plan and purpose, and knowing that there is light at the end of the tunnel. So having that faith and that belief is really important to me.
Yeah, for sure. And finally, is there anything that unique that you found maybe in this tournament, or in maybe the tournaments you've done with the youth levels as well, where you can attribute to staying fresh and kind of staying on top of your game?
Once again, probably the recovery stuff, like just everything that we have around the base camp that we're at, everything that we have at the pitches, training ground. It's so special, and to see that improvement from going from that youth age groups to see this at the senior level is so important. It's really good to have that available.
She's such an exciting talent. She's very down to earth, very reserved and calm and level-headed.
Ridiculously chill, I would say.
Chill.
I wish I was that chill at 19 years old. I mean, I'm certainly not that chill now. So I think she's got a really good, calm head on her. I think she's got a really good support system around her as well. And to be on the major stage at her age is huge. It's been quite a rapid ascent in the last 2 months, I would say. She scored that goal in 41 seconds against Belgium, having not been called up to the squad before that, and then suddenly she's at a major tournament and making her debut. So I think it's gone very, very fast, but you can tell when talking to her how level-headed she is, and she's just kind of taking it all in her stride.
Yeah, she's very grounded, and she, attributes a lot of that to her family and her faith, and I think they're examples of things that are very valuable to players to remain on top of their game, to feel on top of the game, especially at major tournaments. And that's not always easy and hasn't always been easy for players over the years when major tournaments are in far-flung places and perhaps those support systems are not as readily available. But it does feel like nowadays a lot is being done to make sure that all of those things in and around the players are there for them so that they can feel at the very top. And I think
it's even the little things like it's quite a big thing, but getting families out to tournaments now. I think having the help as well to get them here and get them supporting the girls is really important, because it means every single player now has everyone who comes out has a support structure around them, and it's very, very valuable, I think.
Yeah, it's just another one of those levers that they can pull. That's it from us, from part 2 of our mini series supported by Xero. I've really enjoyed exploring this topic. It's an area we've been really interested in. So to be able to cover it with Xero, make it happen, especially at a major tournament, has been brilliant. And it's not the first time we've been able to do something at a major tournament, delving into a topic that really interests us. And I think it's a great example there of working with a partner that we have a shared vision and allows you to kind of explore things that work for both of you, and gives you the freedom to bring to life some of these topics. And I know one of the main things that Xero want to do in terms of their support for women's football is to support small businesses. So we're very much feeling that from the last couple of tournaments we've been able to do. And yeah, I've very much enjoyed this one.
Definitely, it's really valuable, and it gets us exploring the stuff that we want to explore as well. And as you say, that freedom to do it, and that takes kind of the pressure off us in a way as a small business to be able to do that and be able to really dig into the stuff that we want to talk about.
Well, hopefully here's to more in the future. If you missed part 1, make sure you go back and check it out, and make sure you're following us on our socials as well for extra content. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as we have. Chat soon.